The Intercept did a great investigative report on how prepared the TSA is when it comes to certain threats. They specifically looked at the issue of thermite, which is a substance that could lead to some severe damage on a flight. Now, what's interesting about this is the TSA usually gets briefed by both the FBI and the CIA by potential or of potential terrorist threats, right? And then the TSA has the job of giving that intel to air marshals. That way air marshals will be better equipped and better prepared to deal with perceived threats on flights. Now, what's interesting is the Intercept was able to obtain a private document indicating that the FBI is very much worried about thermite, okay? So according to the report, thermite is a mixture of rust and aluminum powder, and it could be used against a commercial aircraft, TSA warned in a December 2014 document, marked secret. The ignition of a thermite-based incendiary device on the aircraft at altitude could result in catastrophic damage and the death of every person on board. So this sounds freaking serious, right?
Yeah.
And so the air marshals get this notice, they get this intel from the FBI to the TSA to the air marshals, and they're like, okay, cool, so what are we gonna do now? And the TSA is like, we don't know. We have no idea. In fact, we're not even really sure how to detect it. It goes on. TSA said it is unlikely to spot an easy-to-assemble thermite-based incendiary device during security screening procedures, and the use of currently available extinguishers carried on aircrafts could create a violent reaction. So what else does it do? It could produce toxic gases, which could act as nerve poison, as well as a thick black smoke that will significantly inhibit any potential for in-flight safety officers to address the burn. So it's fascinating, right? Okay, so we know all this information about the threat. First of all, how much of a threat is this, right? So if you're an air marshal and you receive this information, I mean, how much do you have to worry about it? Is this something that terrorists are planning on doing? Is there any indication that this is something that's prevalent among their thought process when it comes to terrorist attacks? And also, if they are attempting to do this, how can we detect it? What's the right thing to do? TSA has no idea. The FBI hasn't given them any information in that regard. And so it's a complete and utter disaster, right? All it's doing is causing a ton of fear within, the air marshals, the TSA. They're not talking about how much of a threat this really is.
Am I missing something here, or why would it go to the air marshals? It has to go to the TSA. Well, if it goes to the air marshals, they're on the plane already.
Yes.
Dealing with all the stuff you just described, that's a real problem if you're on a plane that's flying already. Shouldn't this be going to the TSA? Not that I have any great faith in the TSA, because every time I walk through one of those things, you show them your ID, that half the time they don't even look at you. You know, especially in JFK, it's a little better here at LAX. A lot of these people do not seem properly trained to speak, to say the least. I'm trying to be nice here. So I don't have any great faith in that. But to get it to the air marshals first seems bizarre.
Well, it does go to the TSA, and then the TSA gives the information to the air marshals.
Right, but what? All right. Well,
but then the TSA isn't doing anything about it.
That's
what shocks me.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And look, the real issue comes from the FBI, which gives this information to the TSA, and then the TSA feels obligated to transfer that information along to the air marshals. In fact, here's a great quote that kind of goes to that point. This is graphic number 5. One former TSA official that spoke to the Intercept on condition of anonymity said the following: "You're signing off on this saying you've reached or you've received this briefing. This covers their ass in case something happens. They can say, we shared our intel," referring to the TSA, right? So they just kind of feel obligated to send the message to the air marshals. But the information there is really lacking because, A, how much of a threat is this? And also, and by the way, what is the likelihood that they're going to use this substance on a plane, right? Because based on the information they've given the air marshals, it sounds like this is a really easy way to do a terrorist attack. Oh, it's so easy for them to get through TSA without us detecting it, right? But the more you read into this story, the more you realize that this isn't really much of a threat at all. And so why is this information being passed out to air marshals? Why is there this weird fear-mongering going on? It's all very, very strange. Now, the FBI told the TSA the following. They said that the description of their test, thermite devices spew molten metal and hot gases and can potentially burn through steel and every other material on the aircraft. But then the Intercept did a great job by talking to an actual chemist about this, and here's what they found. They spoke to Jimmy Oxley, a professor of chemistry at the University of Rhode Island, and an expert in explosives and explosive detection. And this is what he had to say. Though a theoretical threat, it seemed an unlikely candidate to skip through security, particularly since the would-be terrorists would also have to carry an igniter. And if they carry an igniter and they're also messing around with it on a flight, well, then people are going to notice. The TSA is going to find the igniter. This isn't a real threat. Okay, it's not as simple as bringing the substance on a plane and boom, something explodes and it's over.
It just seems weird to me, because first of all, who leaked this to the Intercept? Obviously, when something gets leaked in Washington, D.C. to different journalists, there's somebody who is wanting this information to get out. Were they wanting it to get out because it's important information? Well, based on this article, it doesn't seem like it, because the FBI does say available reporting does not indicate any extremist interest in thermite. So who's behind this? What's the real deal?
Yeah.
Who does this serve to have this information go to the Intercept and then out to the broader public?
Yeah, it is really weird. It seems like it's a strange waste of resources. There's a ton of fear for no apparent reason. And also, if this was a real threat, wouldn't the FBI and wouldn't the TSA go through some sort of measure to prevent this, this product from going through TSA, right? I mean, it seems like they're saying, oh, look, if they manage to get this substance by us, then it could cause some serious damage.
So maybe,
end of story.
Maybe the reason why this got released now, someone leaked this to the press right now, maybe it had something to do with the funding of the Department of Homeland Security. Maybe that they're like, look how serious stuff is. And the Republicans are holding up this bill. We should pass the Department of Homeland Security. Look, they're going to blow up planes with thermite.
The TSA, they're going to be working without pay. And they're the ones that would have to look out for this kind of thing. And the air marshals, and are they not getting enough training? And clearly they're not. I mean, if this is something that is important, why doesn't the TSA do something about it? This is only a 2-month-old report. I think it looks like they initially put it out in December of 2014. So if it's a new threat and it's a credible new threat, then why aren't we hearing more about this? Why aren't the air marshals being trained? Why doesn't the TSA have apparently any plans whatsoever to talk about this or train it? I think you're probably right.
Yeah, that's not a bad theory.
I don't think that those TSA workers, I don't know what their training consists of, but there's a more vigorous training program at Subway Sandwich, I'm pretty sure. Are you kidding me? You ever look those people in the eye? You've been trained? You've been trained, huh? Okay.
Yeah, do you guys, that's what I was going to ask. Do you guys feel safer
No.
after you go through the TSA
Well,
stuff?
I know security theater.
Well, it's theater, of course, and and yes, they're watching in other ways, and they're watching body language and supposedly some other stuff. But like, I never feel any more secure. If anything, I feel less secure, and I think, wow, there were 18 different ways that someone could have smuggled something.
I'll show you.
I don't
just
feel,
knowing those simple, the shoes, the laptop, everyone knows it, and I agree with you. They don't seem like they're paying attention. A huge percentage of them. I can't say that at every airport. I'm just saying the airports that I've been to.
I don't feel less safe, but I certainly feel like a lot of their methods are superfluous. So I feel like the advanced pat downs and making you go through the scanners
take
and
off
making
your
you
shoes.
making you take off your shoes. I mean, and every once in a while there'll be drug sniffing dogs. Like if you're, I know the dogs are also trained to sniff out explosives, right? But I just feel like there are methods that have been utilized by other officials in other countries that have been really successful. Like in Israel, for instance, their airport security doesn't go through all of these crazy methods, and they've been really successful in somehow finding who the real threat is and then filtering them out.
Right. I mean, it's about money because they basically have to interview you. I mean, you pretty much, I've been there twice. You have literally, you sit down, sometimes in a room alone with a guy to get on a regular commercial flight. And they watch your, your eye contact, the way your body moves, all that stuff. So it's about money because they only have one international airport, and we have probably, give me a number here.
Well, I would say 150,
right.
maybe.
So it's about
well, stop spending money on the expensive-ass technology and do screening methods that actually work. How about that?
Well, then remember, this was also right after 9/11 when there was definitely a problem with interagency communication. So a lot of these procedures were put in place for good reason because there wasn't that kind of exchange of information between the FBI and the CIA and state and local law enforcement. We had all the stories that came out about the FBI agents who had information about the terrorists taking lessons where they weren't landing. They only want to know how to take off. So all that information did not make it through and was not communicated properly, and that was definitely a factor. So I'm glad that we do have information sharing now, but this obviously shows that we still have quite a few holes in that information sharing program. And
or that document that Bush got that said they're trying to fly planes into buildings, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. The PDB, the Presidential Daily Briefing. Yes, that's right. You know, so there's all these reasons why it is good that they have this kind of interaction between the FBI and the TSA, but clearly we're not following through on that for, you know, some reason. And I think probably some of it is money. You know, no one's making money off of searching people for this new, not necessarily a threat, whereas people make a lot of money off of those new body scanners that we spent. Yeah, they spend billions on that.
Absolutely.